Hey guys, it's April Fool's Day. I hope you were full today. We were pretty full today because my two kids put saran wrap on all of our toilets, which was really fun. An unnamed family member tried to go to the bathroom. It was really funny for everybody. I hope that you weren't full today. And the other thing is my daughter went around and she took all of her little stuffed dogs and put them all over my work. It was pretty cute. Anyway, I wonder if you're going stir crazy yet. It is day something or other, I don't know, 15? I have no idea. 17 of our quarantine. So forgive me if I'm getting a little loopy, but we're just going to go for it. So lesson 9, this is completing the square part 2. And what makes this different from part 1 is in lesson 8, we had a nice looking trinomial like this that had an a value of 1, so it was an invisible coefficient. So a was equal to 1, and then we took it through all these steps to complete the square, which is, it's a laborious process. I mean, there are these 5 steps, similar to if a is equal to 1, when a is not equal to 1 and is greater than 1, well, that's what we're going to focus on with this lesson. There are a couple of extra steps, but don't be scared. And this is no joke, even though it's April Fool's Day. So, and I know that today is not April Fool's Day for you because I'm recording this on April Fool's Day, but I don't think this lesson is until, I don't know, the week of April 6th or something. I don't know. Doesn't matter anyway. Okay, so let's do it. Let's begin. And I'm gonna as soon as I finish, getting through this little checklist, then I'm gonna check it off. And I'm gonna write small. I would encourage you to write small too. So it says step 1, rewrite in this form, and that's what we did the other day. We wanted to move the constant to the right. So step 1. 4x squared plus 8x. And again, we are moving the negative 5. So basically we're adding 5 to both sides, which means we're going to end up with 5 on the right. So I just moved the constant, to the right. Now 2 says we're going to divide the equation by a. Okay. So that means we're going to divide both sides by 4. Because a is 4 from this example. And we're going to get a quotient. So when I divide this out, I'm going to end up with, 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared. Plus, I'm going to bring down that addition sign, and then I'm going to end up with 2x. And on the right side, I'm going to just stick with that fraction for now. I'm not going to do any simplifying, anything like that, or decimalizing. I'm just going to keep it like it is. Okay, so I took care of that. Now I'm going to take half of b. So this should look familiar from the previous lesson. If I take half of b, which is my linear or my x here, I'm going to end up with 1. 1 is half of 2, and I'm going to square it. And I'm going to solve it right here. Well, it's 1. Okay, now I'm going to add that to both sides. So this is now step 3. So I'm going to do x squared plus 2x, and then plus 1. I'm going to underline that just so we remember. And then over on the right, I'm going to have 5/4 plus 1. Okay, so I finished number 3. Number 4, factor the perfect square trinomial. So this means I'm doing the product sum game. So I'm multiplying to 1, and I'm combining to 2. Well, I think that's pretty straightforward. And I'm going to factor it. So I'm going to put it in factored form. X plus 1 squared equals, hold on to what we did before, plus 1. Okay, I just factored it. And then 5 is I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Okay, well, I'm going to do it up here. So the square root of my left side is just going to be that factor. And then I'm going to have 5/4 plus 1. Well, if I add 1, well, isn't 1 when I add a fraction to a whole? This, one way I could do this is turn my 1 into 4/4. So I'm just going to erase this. I'm going to rename this 1 into 4/4 because then I'm kind of speaking the same language, which equals 9/4. So I'm going to take the square root of 9/4. I'm going to write that here. Well, the square root of 9/4 is, now I'm going to actually write the answer. Well, you could break it up like this. Well, what's the square root of 9? What's the square root of 4? Square root of 9 is 3. Square root of 4 is 2. So if I take the square root, I just did both sides, and this has to be a plus or minus. Now, I'm going to solve for both scenarios here, a positive and a negative. So I'm going to rewrite it. So x plus 1 equals 3/2 over here. And then x plus 1 equals negative 3/2 over here. Now if I solve for x over here, I'm going to subtract 1. Subtract 1. Well, 3/2 minus 1 is just 1/2. Okay. So I got my 1x. If I subtract 1, I'm going to end up over on the right with x is equal to negative 5/2. Okay. And it's kind of a lot of work. Oh, can you still see it? Yeah, kind of. But remember, we have to write it in the set way. Where can I put this? Well, I guess I could write it over here. X equals the set of negative 5/2 and 1/2. And that's your answer. Okay. Number 1. So let's try to remember all these steps. So remember, if you write yourself some notes over here just to remember what the steps are, you'll remember it better. So the other day, I think I wrote some kind of cheat sheets for myself. So I said something like this. Well, move C over to the right. And then 2, well, we have to divide the equation by A. So maybe divide by A. 3. Half. So this is the step that we didn't do with our previous lesson, was this step. That's what makes it different. Half of B. Okay. And then square it. And then 4 is add b squared to both. And then 5 was factor. And then 6 was take the square root of both and solve. That's my little shorthand to all of those steps. Okay, so let's go for it. Okay, so, and I'm going to write small. I wish I had a sharper pencil, but I don't. So first step, we want to get rid of that c to the right side. So 2x squared minus 8x equals negative 6. And then my next step, again, this is new, is I'm going to divide the whole equation by whatever this a value is, which in this scenario is 2. Okay. Now my second step is I'm going to divide it out. I'm going to have x squared left over minus 4x equals, well, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Okay. Now I'm going to take half of this x value, which is my b. Half of 4 is 2. I'm going to square it, and I end up with 4. And then I'm going to add it to both equations. So x squared minus 4x plus 4, remember I got it from up here, equals negative 3 plus 4. And again, I'm underlining it just to show that I'm not changing the equation. I'm just adding 4 to both sides. I'm balancing it still. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the square. Oh, forgive me. I'm going to factor this. So I'm trying to get to 4 and then add or combine to negative 4. Well, I know it's going to be 2 and 2. And what's going to be negative? I think they both have to be negative because negative times a negative is positive. Okay. And negative 2 plus negative 2 is negative 4. Okay, so this I can write in factored form now. My binomial is now x minus 2 squared, which equals that. And then I can rewrite, well, negative 3 plus 4. Oh, it's my brother. Such a nice guy. Negative 3 plus 4 is 1. Okay. Now I'm going to take the square root of both sides. Oh, I like that. That's kind of nice. So I'm going to end up with x minus 2 equals square root of 1 is 1, but don't forget the positive and negative. And I'm going to rewrite this. X minus 2 equals 1, and x minus 2 equals negative 1. Okay, you can still see it. Great. Okay, so if I add 2 to both sides here, x is going to equal 3. If I add 2, x is going to equal 1. Oh, I did that a little better because it's a little more compressed here. So the final answer is this. X is equal to the set of 1 and 3. Okay, let's move on to number, oh, we at 12 minutes. Okay, let's move on to number 3. And then I want to see how many more pages are on this. Oh yeah, you could probably just do the class note odds. That would be probably good. Okay, let's do number 3. So I'm going to get a pencil. Ooh. I think the other joke my kids played on me is they took all my sharp pencils. Okay, lots of them. Shame on me. Okay, so let's go for it. Let's try to let go of our scaffolding now a little bit. So I'm going to move the C over. Oh, that's a I can't do that. Okay, 5x squared plus 10x equals, and I'm going to add 34 to both sides. So 6 plus 34 is 40. Okay. Now my next step is I'm going to divide. It's kind of like slide and divide, I guess. I'm going to divide both sides by 5. I'm going to find my quotient now. I'm going to have x squared left. 10 divided by 5 is 2x left over. 40 divided by 5 is 8. Okay. Half of 2, square it, and then add to both sides. X squared plus 2x plus 1 equals 8 plus 1. Product sum, multiply to 1, combine to 2. I think it's going to be 1 and 1. Okay. Rewrite. x plus 1 squared equals 8 plus 1 is 9. Okay, now take the square root of both sides. I'm going to end up with x plus 1 equals positive or negative 3. Rewrite x plus 1 equals 3. X plus 1 equals negative 3. If I subtract 1, x is going to equal 2 on this side. If I subtract 1, x is going to equal negative 4 on that side. And, okay. Oh, I should have boxed my answers. Okay, so then I'm going to box my answer because I'm somehow, someday, going to remember how to do that. Negative 4, 2. Okay. You can try the other two, but I think we're going to, these are pretty long. You can just go on to the back here. Okay. I'll do 5. Okay. Oh, yeah, this is nice and complicated. I have a little extra work to do. So let's get this into the proper form. Remember, I'm trying to get this in this form. I want to get it into ax squared plus bx equals c. Oh, so I'm going to have to move some things around here. So let's add 44. And then let's subtract x squared. Okay. So now I'm going to end up with see, that's what I get. I meant that I wanted to add x squared. My apologies. So I'm going to end up with 4x squared. No other linear, so I can just stick with my 24x. And then that's going to equal, and on the right side, I want my constant. Well, I have 1 plus 44, so I have 45. Okay. Now I'm going to divide by 4. And I'm going to end up with x squared minus 6x equals, well, 45 divided by 4 is 9. Okay. And now half of negative 6 is negative 3 squared equals 9. Oh, it's funny, it's the same number. So now I'm going to add 9 to both sides. X squared minus 6x plus 9 equals, well, 45 divided, oh my gosh, did you see what I did? 45, oh my gosh. This is what happens when you do this. 45 divided by 4. I'm going to stick with that for a minute. I can't believe I just said that was 9. That's pretty funny. Over here, I'm going to stick with 45 over 4. I'm going to add my 9 over here too. Okay. Now I am going to factor this trinomial. So I've got 9 and I've got negative 6. And 9 is square, so I'm liking x minus 3. Okay, so my factor is going to be x minus 3 squared. Okay, so I factored that. And then I have 45 over 4 plus 9. Well, if you think about how do you add these together, if you have 9 wholes, well, can you rewrite 9 wholes with 44 in the bottom? Well, what's 9 times 4? Because I want 4, I want to rewrite this. There, I'll do a little arrow. how can I write 9 with 4 on the bottom? Well, 9 times 4 is 36, right? So I can rewrite 9 as 36/4. Okay. When I add these two together, I'm going to end up with 81/4. Okay. Now I am going to take the square root of both. Okay, so I'm going to end up with x minus 3 equals, and then I can do the square root of 81, which is 9, over square root of 4, which is 2. And now I am going to solve. And then x minus 3 equals negative. Oh my gosh. I'm really losing my mind. I'm really sorry. X equals 9/2. And then x minus 3 equals negative 9/2. Once I solve this out, I am going to end up with, well, I'm adding 3 over here, I'm adding 3 over here. I'm going to end up with, I'm going to do a little shortcut because this is going to take forever. It's going to be negative 3/2. So if you work that out, comma 15/2. Okay. So remember, when you are adding a whole number to a fraction, you can always rename the whole number with the same denominator on the bottom and simply multiplying the numerator by the denominator to get the new numerator. Okay. Irrational. Let's see what our time is. Oh my gosh, we're over 20 minutes now. Okay, so these are going to be just a little different because these are now going to be irrational. So we can solve them, but it's going to look a little different. Okay. So number 1, I'm going to move my 22 over. I'm going to rewrite it. Equals negative 22. Okay. My next step is I'm going to divide everything, the whole equation, by the a value, and then I'm going to find out x squared minus 8x equals, oh, that's a nice easy one there, equals negative 11. Now half of negative 8 is negative 4 squared, which is equal to 16. So now I am going to add the 16 to both sides. Equals negative 11 plus 16. Now I want to do the product sum. Get to 16 and get to negative 8. And 16 is square, so I think it's going to be 4 and 4, and they're both going to be negative. So when I end up factoring this out, I'm going to get x minus 4 squared equals, well, negative 11 plus 16 is 5. Now you can already see that 5 is not a square number. This is going to be an irrational solution. I can still solve it. It's just going to look a little different. So take the square root of both, and I'm going to end up with x minus 4 equals the positive or negative answer to the square root of 5, if you think about it that way, okay? And these are actually a bit easier to solve because you don't have to do, like these fraction things, gets a little unwieldy, but for this one, all I have to do is now I'm going to add 4, right? And then I have my answer, so it's actually a little bit easier. You just have to remember you account for both solutions here. So 4 plus or minus the square root of 5. Okay. And number 9. And let's go for it. We're going to rewrite this. Minus 6x. We're going to add 3. So we're going to end up with 93. Okay, we're going to divide both sides by 3. Okay, and I'm going to end up with x squared minus 2x equals, well, 93 divided by 3 is 31. And then here, I'm going to take, oh, just got a mosquito. Half of negative 2 is negative 1. I'm going to square it. I'm going to end up with 1. Now I'm going to add 1 to both sides. So x squared minus 2x plus 1 equals 30. Well, if you're going to add 1 to both sides, 31 plus 1 is 32. Okay. Factor, product, sum. And then I'm going to add to negative 2. I think you probably already know it's going to be negative. Okay. X minus 1 squared is equal to this, well, 32. And then I'm going to take the square root of all this. I'm going to end up with x minus 1 equals the positive or negative answer to the square root of 32. And let's move our 1 over and rewrite. So I've isolated x equals 1 plus or minus. Oh, this is kind of interesting. Okay, here's the deal. If I look at 32, something that can be kind of interesting is I can break 32 apart. And I'm looking for a factor that might be a square. So if I think of 32, I could also break 32 into, I could factor it into 16 times 2. Well, couldn't I take the square root of 16, which is 4, and bring that outside? I could. 2 is not a square number, so that still has to be a radical, or still has to be in the form of what is the square root of 2. That is our answer. Okay? And then as far as the set, right? You could always put this into set form like that. Okay. Okay. I think I've exhausted myself. Good luck with this. Night, night.